Hello, I'm Joram Mwesike, Libertarian. I work with Action for Liberty and Economic Development as Administrative Officer. Today, I'm going to be hosting my friend Kakande Richard, Director, Africa Liberty Foundation. We are going to be chatting a story about libertarianism in Uganda and how far we've gone and how Kakande Richard and the movement is ready to influence the libertarian movement and liberal ideas in Africa. At this time, allow me to dive in and invite my colleague, Kakande Richard, to introduce himself as we push in for this program. Thank you. Kakande, you can take on.
Yes, it's really jovial instances that I am here today to talk about the liberal ideas. I am Kakande Richard. I am a lawyer. I am an activist. I am an author, and also a free market philanthropist. Today, we hope to have a wide discussion about liberal ideas ranging from the classical and the evolution of the free market structures as we have today, but not forgetting that we're going to discuss the narrative of the liberal ideas in Uganda. We hope you pick a lesson from today's deliberation and discussion. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. How are things at Liberty Foundation Africa?
African Liberty Foundation, we are progressing. We haven't made a year yet, but we've already done impactful projects that speak to removing barriers to human flourishing in Uganda, and also working with our colleagues within the freedom movement. So far, so good.
Okay. What are those ideas, policies, as a libertarian think tank, do you promote?
We are basically in a free market, free trade, and also advocating for a limited sort of government. Basically, from the heart of our foundation, we are looking at the oppressive tax regime, which taxes people even before they start earning. We're also looking at the system that fails to control the little tax that the government earns through its expanded expenditure. And this is what is trending today. You hear members of parliament being scrapped off their committees, leaders of opposition being charged with exorbitant usage of taxpayers' money, the Speaker of Parliament, being put in shambles because of that exorbitant fees. You've had the analysis being made by journalists every day about the exorbitant fees the House of President uses, which does not reflect the service delivery that the people of Uganda are supposed to be getting. And also the restrictive nature of the markets that we have in Uganda today. So basically, these are some of the policies that we've been able to look at, and that forms the trail that we want to be moving in. Joram.
Yeah, you seem to want to advocate a controlled government expenditure.
Exactly.
Yes. You talked also about a limited government.
Yes.
Can you give a picture? What is a big government? I mean, what is a limited government? That's what you talked about.
Yes.
Some people don't understand that term. What is a limited government?
When we talk about liberal ideas and capitalism, people tend to think that we want to do away with government. But this is not the case. I think our argument has always been that we must have a limited government, and this is the proportion. One, that the government which has few members, the public service itself must be limited. And for us, we first look at the three arms of government. That is the parliament, the executive, and the judiciary. And we think that if you compare the current parliament of Uganda with over 500 plus members of parliament, and if you look at the number of ministers that we have, both cabinet and state, and if you look at the aides of the president, if you look at the presidential office alone and the agencies it holds within, imagine having a ministry for internal affairs, but we also have an agency responsible for the well-being of the president internally. Imagine having the Internal Security Organization. You also have the police, of which the police also has an investigative department, the CID department, but also you have the CMI. So we're looking at the government expenditure on the taxpayer. And we think that when you have a bigger parliament with a lot of money being paid and the allowances and the travel costs every day, and you compare the hospitals that Uganda has, you compare the roads that Uganda has, and you compare the education sector that we have, the two don't match. So, Joram, when you talk about limited government, we mean reduction in the number of public servants. We mean the reduction in the number of members of parliament and also a limited size of the cabinet. That's the first phase of a limited government. Then the other passionate from the liberal ideas is that the government must have a restrictive approach on the economy. Government must not control resources. These are God-given. It's us who put them in power. So how do you wake up after putting in power and tell me sand is yours? It just doesn't make sense. You don't wake up and tell me that, you see, you must not use this road if it's the easy route for trade. So government has a defined role when you talk about limited government, that there are things that, we must enjoy as a society as a whole. And we don't enjoy them for free, we pay for them. For example, the construction of roads, for example, the provision of that necessary medical care, and for example, the provision of security. So these are the things, or these are the known government routine, which is envisaged when you talk about limited government. So we think that the government must be controlled within the confines of the people. It must give the leverage people to do whatever they want or whatever they think, for as long as it's within the public interest. So that's the general picture if we talk about a limited government. It has a defined role, and two, it has a number which is known.
Yeah, so a limited government,
yes,
should be defined within two parameters.
Yes.
The size, the scope, the number of people working in the government,
yes,
and also the power the
yes,
government wields.
Yes.
As far as practicing the expending the power in doing things. For example, it should be restrained as far as participating in the economy.
Yes.
And if you look at Ayn Rand, he said government has only three roles. That is the security,
yes,
justice,
yes,
and defense. Of course, justice is by the police.
The police.
Justice by judiciary through
yes,
court of law, and then army offer
yes,
justice from external aggression. That's what I think the libertarian, and when you look at the arm of objectivism, what Ayn Rand promote. When we dived in first, before I had asked you this question.
Yes.
When did you join the Liberty movement?
I joined the Liberty movement, I think it was 2018. And I think my first interaction was a student-based debate that we had with your organization, Action for Liberty and Economic Development. And we had a number of debates which enticed me to look at government and to have, first of all, a philosophical definition of it, and then I went into the practical part of it. So ever since that debate, and I think the theme of it in 2018 was, we were tasked to discuss, to compare and contrast development, the law, in relation to what we see in Uganda today. And I think our benchmark was to look at countries, the Asian tigers, that was Singapore and Malaysia. Yes, that was when I opened up to study what government meant, what the people meant in relation to government, and what the economy was supposed to mean. And then from there, our next debate was about the fascism, socialism, communism, and capitalism. And one thing I loved about those debates that they triggered my mind to think and also to realize things as they happen, the practical part of it. Yes, so that was when I joined the liberal movement, and what enticed me to declare myself as a liberal.
I think by the time you got to know libertarianism, you were that kind of socialist, and you had the reflection of that kind of society, a communist or socialist society, where you defended the role of government and how government should contribute to the welfare of the people. What was your narrative then?
My narrative then was a communal approach to life. I didn't know about communism per se as I know it now, but I had a communal approach to life. I thought that as I walk in life, there's someone who is supposed to protect my rights and liberty, someone who is supposed to provide for me what to eat, someone who has to define how do I go and trade, that we must contribute a lot of tax to make sure that our education system improves, that our medical system should be at the whim of government and the government provide the best medical care. I had a notion that land was supposed to be owned by government if people had to benefit from it, because this is what I used to see. The land which was owned by government in my young age, practically to see were roads. So I loved it when they said that was a government road because they had tarmacked it. And for the common pathways to our homes were always unmade. So I preferred the notion of, having someone superior to come and take over us. Practically, maybe it was from the traditions of the African setting where you have a father that takes care of everything. I think that was it. So I had a communal approach to life and understanding of things.
Okay. I think now you've explored the ideas of freedom, the idea of liberty, capitalism, and all that. What are those key figures that you think inspire you? And when you look at them and the work they have done, the authors, and you feel really inspired and their work moves you and compels you to go more into the libertarian or liberal ideas?
Yes, I think going after those discussions that we used to have at ALET and also the university chapters I joined, first of all, the course I did, law, introduced me to do research on my own. And one of the first figures that I envisaged was Bastiat. I had a lot of work from Bastiat, especially regarding the legal plunders in the world. I understand the genesis of rights, the genesis of society, and I understood what we call republicanism. I understood what democracy means, and then I understood a definition of one individual in the bigger society. I understood what it means to be a person of your own terms and merits vis-a-vis the bigger society. So the concept of individualism started from there. I've also admired the works of Socrates, also in definition of the same, about rights and about the role of government vis-a-vis individual. I've also admired the philosophy of Ayn Rand, objectivism, which talks about the same things. I've understood the concept of economy and why we are poor from Adam Smith. You've looked at The Wealth of Nations. Yes, I've read a lot of that book and repeated it over and over and over again. I've also understood or had a good learning from Eamon Butter. If you look at his book, Foundation of a Free Society, I've also admired lately Bruce about his divine economic model. Yes, we have a lot of arguments now on the formation of God and the economy. But if you look at his interpretation of property rights, if you look at the way he transcends of man in the transformation stage, if you look at the way he quotes about society being built on you, that you must have something that you produce for you to earn income, and the rest, as he quotes in his book, I have loved the way he juxtaposes the economy. So there are a lot of people within the circles of learning, but the key to them, what is unique about them, that they're all liberals, or two, yes, they are capitalists. That's what I've learned from
yeah, just given me a number of people, but there should be one person you think that inspires you most, and that's what I had asked for. Let's go on, and I think for yourself, you take freedom as one of the most important things.
Yes.
And freedom is the foundation of things that human beings are doing on this earth, and the prosperity we see, the technology development, better medicine,
Yes.
it is out of the freedom of people to do and achieve in life. But why are people not so much concerned with liberal idea or libertarianism and freedom? Why people are afraid, not much concerned, and not ready to fight for it?
Yes, I think the reasons are two, but the big one is the ideological disorientation. You grow in a system, you are given birth to a system that you don't understand, and the system does not give you room to know. That's the first biggest problem. Today, if you look at, for example, I'll talk about religion shortly to answer your question. Today, a child born today, we think that man started with the Bible. Why? It has been translated into our native languages. It is said everywhere. We even have a public day for church, which is a Sunday. So a person born today thinks that man started with religion. But this is a thing of just 2,000 years here. Human existence has been on earth for the last 40 billion years. You get? So the people in Africa do not fight for rights, one, because they don't know it. That's the first thing. They don't. Governments never tell you about that. The government projects itself as the only hope that human existence should rely on. That's the first thing. And now that limits research. It limits the search for knowledge, and also limits the way we see and interpret things. We've grown up in a generation where we just see countries fighting, but we don't know why. The evolution, if you look at, for example, the case of Uganda, how many subjects talk about rights and liberty? If you look at the new curriculum, what is political education? A lot of things like political science have been scrapped off our curriculums. So that limitation is the first factor. That's why people don't fight for liberties. They don't know it. They think right from the tradition where everything was sorted by the kingdoms, that the kingdoms were now replaced by the state, who are the answers to our daily life. The second thing is the projection of the state, the anger, the abuse that has been employed by the state against those who think contrary to it has also been a contributing factor. Unlike in the past, if you take lessons from the French Revolution, where people could come up and revolt against, the king, how many armies do we have today? What is the number? Look at the type of technology employed in the army. Uganda has had a number of riots. 2006 demonstrations, the recent ones of 2026 demonstrations. Look at how the government treats civilians, the brutality used. You get? So the fear, the rule of people by fear, is one of the other factors that has limited the much needed desire to fight for freedom. And as well, you could also consider the illogical government policies when it comes to economy, where the state comes to own the biggest, money generating part of the economy, making the majority poor. It is so unfortunate that majority of the poor people do not know how to fight for their rights. That's it. They don't have the guns, they don't have the money to even, they are not given the platform to be known. Government owns the media. It either owns it or its own people are the one running the media. So they will never give you the opportunity to. There are a lot of stories which go in the world that are never told. And this is not only in Africa, even outside Africa. At one point, USA was being controlled by 7 families only. That's it. We're having a lot of taxes. Look at the immigration policy, which has been failed to be controlled by Britain and the US. Why is it so? So the factors concerning freedom are global, are very global. And those are some of the reasons as to why people don't wake up to fight for their rights. They don't know. And those who have known, the fear. People have lost families. You've had a lot of exiles from Rwanda because of what is happening there, because of the nature of the president that they have in Rwanda. The same has been seen even here in Uganda. We have a lot of exiles in Uganda. Today, I'll tell you, Joram, that if you look at many of the media personalities who were working during the recent election are no longer in Uganda. And the majority of them, the reason are political. Why? They were seen to be supporting the state. And before the state could engulf them, they had to run away. So these are some of the demoralization that we face as citizens who choose bad leaders. That's the price we pay.
Yeah, I think education is very, very fundamental in evolution of knowledge. And the education is always by the public, and the public has always wanted to teach us what they want. And that has been part of the problem that has actually limited the world from development, the world from experiencing freedom and civilization.
Exactly.
Yeah, and recently I have been discussing with a colleague. I shared a post on Facebook about capitalism and how capitalism and free market has influenced the world and has lifted millions of people out of poverty.
Yes.
And one of my colleagues seemed to argue that capitalism is imperialism and colonialism.
Yes.
Why do people tag capitalism to colonialism or imperialism?
I think it also goes back to the other point of ideological disorientation. People haven't appreciated capitalism. The first figures of capitalism that have ever come out didn't paint a good picture. We have John D. Rockefeller, who owned everything. In the US, we had Carnegie, who was a tiger in the steel industry. Those two men ought to have created this picture of, ownership of everything, because they had immense profits, but they had the worst management of labor, exploitation of resources without pay, and the long hours of work that they used to employ people. So capitalism, because remember, they produced the biggest corporation, the biggest companies to have existed. Oil was for Rockefeller, the railway, and then, I think that was the picture that people took. But capitalism, if you understand it from its genesis, started here in Africa.
Africa was capitalist.
Yes, traditionally.
Before the even advent of the colonialism.
Of colonialism, yes.
Yeah,
because
it is true.
Because if you just understand what capitalism is, then you can't badmouth it for it. Yes. It's just the free exchange of goods and services,
ownership of means of production,
and ownership of means of production without restrictions or limitations. It's as simple as that.
The voluntary interaction of people
and capitalism
of values.
And capitalism has three things that is common. That's why people should love it. One, that is voluntary. It's never coerced.
No force.
We don't even force you to go and work. There are communism states where you are forced to go and work. But here you're not forced. However, perhaps we say that you have a reward. You don't work, you don't eat. Period. Capitalism tells you, you work harder, you eat more.
The reward on those who create value.
Yes. And two, capitalism carries morality. It is the morality of capitalism is that you have an initial and absolute ownership of the things that you've worked for. Not even society not even society is empowered to take what you've earned honestly. That is capitalism. Which other form of governance or social circle of reasoning would have given you that? The third one, which is ethics, is so crucial that you see you have the right as a buyer on the market over the variety of choices that are there.
You can refuse.
You can refuse.
You can join the deal.
You can join the deal.
You can contract or refuse.
You can contract, or you can even stay neutral. These are all the things that capitalism gives you. So why are they calling it imperialist? They are calling it imperialist because it was bought by, they think that it was bought by the whites. But these ideas that have always been here, they started with man. Man traded with himself through barter trade,
yes,
which was also voluntary.
Yes.
And the value was determined by whoever wanted what you have.
Willing buyer, willing seller.
Yes. In law, we had the case, I'm just forgetting it. It's under freedom of contract. And one of the judges said that, you see, even if it is to sell a bull for the exchange of a matchstick, it's okay, for as long as parties have agreed to that. So we don't care. That's what capitalism is. I'm going to give them an example. which I learned from one of my colleagues, Mugabe, who said that when they introduced the electronic cars, the communism and the socialists raised up saying that these cars are very expensive and this is exploitative. But Mugabe was giving us an analogy that, you see, people failed to see that the car, which was being sold about 40,000 US dollars, is paying for the African who mined the copper. It is paying for the innovation, which was its creativity. It's paying for the electronic companies that built it. It is paying for it is also paying for the wages of the labor of those companies. By the time you see a car on the road, it has passed through hands of thousands of people. And this price is a reflection of them going back home with bread. That's what they forget. So capitalism pays each and everyone honestly, because the market is always the judge. The market is always the judge. And I think people failing to appreciate that is the reason as to why they think it's imperialism. They don't understand it. The day they wake up and understand what capitalism means, no one will still want to fight it. But it has always been the only solution, especially for third world countries. Because government is not allowed to intervene. You trade freely, you own factors of production, you choose what to do and what not to do. The market normally sorts us out. So that is it.
Yes, I always have a story.
Yes.
I always want to tell people. If you had a house girl, a maid at home, you buy a kilogram of meat, and after cooking it, the maid serves herself.
Yes.
And of course, she gives you 2 pieces instead of 3 or 4 or 5 pieces. And the maid serves herself the rest of the meat.
Yes.
And eat the big piece of that meat. It is the same case today. If you look at that scenario where a maid serves herself bigger portion of what is served on the table, and the person who buys and actually pays the meat, the maid gets the smallest part, the smallest share. If you look today at the Uganda parliament, there are the nobles, there are the people who pay themselves highly at the expense of the hospital, at the expense of the taxpayer who go in a very bad structured school, at the expense of the roads that are killing Ugandans, at the expense of any social life. But why do you think Ugandans are not realizing that Ugandans law makers and laws are ganging up as thieves? I always consider them as highway robbers, more dangerous than high robbers, in context of how they serve themselves compared to the taxpayer. In Uganda, if you look at businesses, there's no business, business which makes profits up to the tune of how much the members of parliament are earning are very few.
Yeah.
Why do you think the laws and Ugandans are not up in arms against such a group of people that are using the law to steal Ugandans?
For the sake of Uganda, I think the laws are a bit okay. They only have one problem, and that's the problem of democracy. You see, people who talk about rights talk about it in reflection of democracy. And among the 10-point program that brought the regime in power, they had democracy. But democracy has the ability of giving you dimwits in the House of Representatives. Because it's about numbers, not integrity, not morality, not ethics. That's why you've had the head of state saying that even if you vote for me jerrycans, for as long as they are yellow jerrycans, me, I'm okay with it. That's what democracy gives you.
So we see no morality.
So there's no morality.
We see no ethics.
And there are no ethics.
We see
no
a
integrity.
country that is headed to do.
Yes, that's number one. Number two, the people were hoodwinked about the values of election. And that's the second point. And the second point also comes on effect of what we call of the global society in Africa. What do I mean here? We don't realize the burden of the taxes we pay because much of the time we pay it later.
That is indirect taxes.
We are relying on grants. So the government becomes so happy. It becomes so arrogant in answering. They tell you, but we got the money from US. Is it your money? Of course, we have this loan that we have to pay in future.
They don't feel that impact of direct taxes.
People don't feel it. People in Uganda don't feel it. Why? Because
the government is not accountable.
Because the bills are not as that high as you see it elsewhere. I had a colleague who was coming from Israel, who was here and was telling me, but where do people get taxes from? I don't see industries. I only see food. You get? So people are reluctant in countries where the budgets are highly funded by grants. That's a problem. It's a big problem. And I after that statement, we had here a discussion with Marina, a colleague to Aled. She was here, and I asked her these open questions. And she was like, you people don't know that outside Uganda, it's hard even to grow your own food. It's cheaper to buy than to grow. Why? The taxes are felt. For you to have a cabbage, you're going to pay for water tax, electricity tax, you're going to pay for manure. So because their taxes are physical, they feel them for everything they do, they have to pay for taxes, which is clear to them. That's why they wake up and say enough is enough. But our governments, because they are relying on aid, much of it, we don't feel it. That's it. So members of parliament and the cabinet have this thinking that we don't realize, we take long to realize the impact or the effect of the money they take from us. Why? That even if they steal the money, you go and eat. You go and sleep. You get? You go and take your child to a private school. And if you can't afford it, there is a dwindling government school. So the point that we don't feel that pain of daily physical taxes has been one of the reasons that's why people are redundant to wake up on their knees. Joram, imagine a day where you'll be told that, you see, you have those water bills and you have electricity bills. Of course, we have them, but at reduced costs. Why? Because the companies here are having joint contracts with government. So there is this bit of subsidization of this. You get? I'm just looking at a point of whereby you can't even grow your own food without paying tax, just like it is in the UK. You get a point? I'm just imagining that situation. It would be easy for people to strike and come in arms because they will be feeling the physical pain directly. So people don't know that we are paying in future. You can only see this if you've read between the lines and look at the Ugandan debt now. We are soon reaching our debt trap, whereby the money we are having...
Actually, the debt trap is beyond average.
Yes.
It is beyond average.
Beyond average.
Actually, beyond the recommendation by IMF.
Yes, but...
And, of course, Ugana's economy is in trouble. You can see the inflation.
The inflation, today the dollar is going in 4,000, just $1.
You see, since 2019, the price of commodities, goods doubled.
Yeah.
Doubled, that means that if you had 10,000, that money collapsed to 5,000.
Yes.
And if you look at the things happening and trying to break the economy, it is the biggest. I mean, it's politics.
Yes.
It's the big government.
It's a big government.
It's corruption.
It's corruption.
And those people in power tend to overlook them because of politics.
And the policy, the economic policy, the
Yes.
poor, the Marxist economic policy that Uganda is employing.
So let's look at the regulations. Uganda recently passed, the government signed the mirror policies. And also in the Eastern Uganda, there is sugar regulation.
Yes.
If we are to argue in economic terms, we see it is a liberal economy that prospers fast.
Yes.
It's a capitalist economy, and capitalism that has lifted, in recent decades, millions of people out of poverty.
Yes.
If we are to look at the Asian tiger, most people call it socialist society. Yet, if you are to look at the environment, it allows the capitalist to prosper. It allows sound money. It allows business to contract. It allows everything to grow.
Yes.
What is your argument on government policies on mirror and other substances? If you look at this government, for example, growing mirror, you're supposed to pay a license.
Yes.
And most of Uganda are unable to do that. Yes. If you look at sugar cane growing in eastern Uganda, you look government actually trying to control it and push some people out of that business. And the impact of this is people losing jobs, is people failing to realize to get money, to get income. And of course, out of this, people are becoming more poor. They are not able to go to hospital. They are not able to pay school fees for them, and actually failing to what to eat. I don't know what is the back of the mind of the government officials when they are making this policy. Isn't such a policies regulations? And I hear some people saying that sometimes that the government wants to make people poor so that they can rule them. What is your argument on such a draconian policies?
The issue of government making people poor to rule them has been the notion of the day. But I'll tell you the fact is that even rich people are ruled.
Yes.
In the USA, they still have a government. In the UK, there's a government.
But some societies, people have freedom.
Yes, they
do. And the reason why we live is to have freedom and live a better life. Yes. Be happy.
Yes.
If we cannot earn livelihood because of people in power, they don't want us to live a better life. They control where we get our money to live a better life. Then that's a challenge. When we see in America, people are taxed, but at least there is kind of freedom and also service. And good.
The real question that you asked was, what is the back of the mind of people that make these laws? You see, ruling people is in Africa is just getting a connotation of an idea that you must sell them. I think what is killing the African economy, starting from Uganda, is the economics and the politics of identity. We've had Museveni talking about it, but these are things that he doesn't practice. If you look at the number of people who have capacity to have these licenses, are people who are coming from the government, and these are people who are similar of the same tribe, just like himself. Uganda being a diverse community with a number of tribes, the government always feels threatened by some of the tribes getting money or becoming rich. And this syndrome must be controlled. That's why you see them in the medical sector, in the education sector. If you look at many of the sectors, many of the buildings in town are owned by one clan of group of people who come from the side of the government. You've seen them joining politics with the wife, the son, and this is what it tells you. The back of their mind is that, how do we build a dynasty in this Uganda? And that is the question. That's the equation that they're trying to achieve. But in a free society, you cannot fail to look at the factors that would elevate the life of people. If you read so well Source of Wealth of Nations and other books, they bring in a very proper aspect of specialization. You see, countries in Europe have grown and they have developed, but they have their areas of focus. They have sectors of development that they are competing with no one else. And if the competition is there, it's so less. Uganda was blessed with that kind of fertile land that we can even grow mira, which is actually highly used in the pharmaceutical. Yes, it has a problem when youth overconsume it, which the government is relying on. But I think if you put it on a weighing scale, mira was supposed to elevate more than a million.
So the government is telling people how they should live their life.
Yes, that's the point.
In the area of argument, if we argue ethically, is that one of the role the government should use?
No, it's not. Because Look, Mira was supposed to elevate about 1 million youth. This is a crop which is weather resistant. It has a high market, both locally and internationally, and it is easy for people to what?
Grow it.
It doesn't need someone to go and apply for papers in an office to look for a job. Many of these youth are coming from villages where there's chunks of land. Imagine if our area of specialization as Uganda for the youth was for the growth of Mira. Mira, even if we have a small room like this studio, with the invention of technology where we have a greenhouse growing, it's a crop whereby a youth would own this kind of a setting of a bunch of this crop, and they're able to go to work. Do you know how much they'll be earning monthly? This is a crop that doesn't die. So, but the government feels that it's not okay for the youth to have money. That's what it says. There's one point I want to bring here, Joram. The moment you see licenses, and the moment you see government putting up these bureaucratic policies, it's deterring. The foundation of taxation is that they are punishing you. That's the point. So should we assume that the government is punishing people for wanting to elevate their lives? Because once you put a tax, you're simply meaning don't do it. I'm going to give you an example. When our neighbors, for example, Kenya, I'm just using it as an example. If Kenya is bringing bad sugar in Uganda, and because we are under cooperation, what does the government do? It may feel that Kenya don't give us your sugar because it's bad. It will overtax it to discourage Ugandans from buying it. Governments have done so to protect their local industries. So taxation is usually a punishment. You get? We discourage the people from doing it. So putting licenses, even on marijuana, people are paying about 100 million for you to just acquire a license of growing.
Tax may not be necessarily
you get a point.
Punishment, but the levels of tax that are being put on services, companies, products, I think that is the argument. Of course, government, as we said, personally believe in the three fundamental role of government.
Yes.
That is security,
yes,
justice,
yes,
and defense. Of course, and that is the reason why we may look at the government and also allow it to do some taxation.
No, we allow taxation on known things. For example, income tax, that we are earning on what you have. We are getting taxed on what you've earned. But I'm talking about a Mira person. You're putting a license, they haven't even started growing it. So you're simply punishing them or discouraging them not to do so. What was the intention of people growing that crop? To lift their livelihood. So you're punishing them or you're discouraging them from lifting their livelihood. So the government is telling you that we are okay and comfortable if majority of you are
now
poor.
In all this, what is the economic impact aspect of these regulations
of course,
in Uganda?
Of course, the economic impact.
Is it competition? Is it overproduction? The government want to curtail the overproduction? What is the challenge?
I think the government has no challenge for this. I think the
because
government...
I see today sugar prices have gone up.
Yes.
Because of regulation, I think.
Yes.
The government has intervened and then destabilized the market.
Yes.
And you see sugar production, the outgrowers,
yes,
they're all stranded with lower prices.
Yes.
The main production companies are growing.
Tea, people have crossed.
Yes, they're growing their sugarcane at a very, very cheaper price.
Yes. And
the prices of the very, very same sugar that these people have produced are very high.
Yes.
So that could be an economic, actual political challenge, economic question that Uganda government actually should be letting the market regulate. Let the government, the market.
I think what you don't see.
Its work.
I think what you don't see here on why the price of sugars are high and this sugar itself is low is that benefits the government. So telling them to regulate it or to get away from that side does not work for the government. How? When our governments are coming in power, they have building blocks. They have allies.
Yes.
And the biggest ally of all governments is the middle class. So let us ask, who owns these sugar companies that are overtaxing Ugandans and yet can't pay a better price for the raw material? These are Indians who are supporting the regime. So it works for the government, not for the common man. And I'm going to give you this analysis. The biggest sugar growing companies in Uganda are Indians. When they came here, they were given free land. They have tax holidays. They have tax exemptions. And they reach a point of buying sugar at their own price because they own the biggest sugar plantations. But we thought that in a free market, even if we are to bring investors, we were supposed to own the factory of production. Let us own land so that they can lease it from us and pay something. You get? Let us be the sugar growers so that they can buy from us at a fair price. You get? At a market price. And then let them produce sugar, which we have the ability to purchase. But imagine you having sugar canes, but you can't afford to buy sugar itself. I don't know if you're getting the logic. So whenever you see that kind of crisis, it simply means that the government benefits from it. Like I told you before, the taxes collected from Uganda are beneficial to the government, but the government is not so much interested in them because it still has aid to rely on. You get? So this is just supplementing. That's why they don't care which company closes. Do you know how many banks have been sold illegally, but the owners have not received justice from it? Look at Greenland Bank, how it closed. Look at formerly Crane Bank. But because the owner of Crane Bank has the political and the financial muscle right now, he's trying to recover some. But a lot of companies have fallen down and the government has not bailed them out. I don't know if you're getting the point. It controls an economy that leads to the fall of some companies. So the political economy of Uganda only benefits the state. It only makes the state to be the only source of hope for Ugandans. And free market does not speak to that. The free market tells you that let people work the way they want. Let them own the factors of production, and then you can come to tax on what they have, and for the three main roles which are defined.
So, if we are to look at the regulations,
yes,
the policies, the constitution, they are all about exploiting the freedom of individuals.
yes.
If you are to look at the policies of the opposition and look at the policies of the incumbent government,
yes,
they are all related. They are all pro-socialist
yes,
policies.
yes.
I always argue that people in opposition in Uganda are fighting a dictator without fighting dictatorship.
Yes.
Because when you look at the policies that are promoting the socialist policies,
yes,
the real construction of another dictator,
yes,
what should the opposition, what are those policies the opposition should look at to create a free Uganda, a free Africa, a society that everyone has freedom to live his life the way he wants, provided that individual does not cause trouble to the society or leave others to be free?
I think it's a right assertion to say that the opposition in Uganda are fighting a dictator without fighting dictatorship. I think personally, I haven't seen an opposition figure that has given Uganda something in mind, tangible, apart from hope of removing a dictator. They have not yet understood policies that help that they have not studied so much of how economies grow. And I think some of the policies they have to look at as they are campaigning or even their manifesto, and for which they're the things that they must be doing when they reach power, is first of all the belief in a limited sort of government, which has defined roles and defined expenditure. And also the other policy that they must look at is to have a morally regulated market, but a free trading market. On morals, I mean in terms of security, in terms of paying for market vendors paying for their utilities, and also to make sure that the companies which are produced are up to the standards which do not affect the health of the people who are consumers. So they have to look at resource utilization. They have to look at the far ends of the international community on where we can trade. So the key area of keeping international relations is crucial. But Uganda is exporting today, one of our biggest exports has been security. But we are also the biggest exporters of labor. So looking at all these factors being present in Uganda, we have to keep up with the international community so that we have a bigger market for the companies that we want to produce. And then the other aspect is that of specialization. What is key and what is crucial for Uganda as a country? Where do we have, where should we focus as a country? Which countries should we own? You get? And these are the companies that are supposed to be enlarged to the outside of the country.
Yeah.
So the free market ideas and trade are the areas where they have to focus, limited government, and then the individualism, defining of an individual in the whole context of society.
Yes. As we wind up, I just wanted you to give me 5 points, summary of policies you would make if at all you are given a position to be in government, or if you become the next government. What are those policy reforms? Briefly, in just 1 second.
If I was to be in government, the first policy would be to reduce the members of parliament to about 40 members. And then I would reduce the entire cabinet to about 40 positions. Those are 80 people. And then I would merge all the duplicity of state agencies and ministries into single ministries within these 40 people. And then the other policy I would look at is widening the market scope by removing regulations. I would not allow market people to pay for their utilities, that's water, the things they use in their daily life, but they would be able to freely exchange goods the way they want. And then I would control the monopolies.
We cannot finish. What is the narrative? What do you make of this narrative that creating more administrative units, creating more districts, municipalities, it is a means of creating more wealth, creating more jobs?
You see, companies,
just in a minute.
Yes, but companies create the biggest number of labor in the world. I would look at the example of this new president of Argentina. Companies are the biggest source of employment. That's it. Government cannot be a source of employment. Because if I give you my tax, I go ahead and work for you and you pay me back my tax. Have I worked?
I believe administrative units, or what we call government, units, the districts, the municipalities,
yes,
the economic outflows.
Yes, but you see,
they are not income outflows.
They don't income outflows, but what is their source of money?
Of course, from tax.
National treasure.
I always tell people that when we create, if my father has a piece of land,
yes,
2 acres, we decide to divide it into 2.
Yes.
How does its value increase? If my district Shenjojo is divided into 2,
yes,
and initially had 7 billion revenue,
yes,
how does that 7 billion revenue increase?
It doesn't.
Beyond that,
it doesn't.
Of course, when the politics come to a place and when my district is divided, it comes with cost.
Yes.
The politicians.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it is always a fallacy, I think.
It's a fallacy.
For the government
and a very big fallacy.
Yeah, I think that is. As we conclude, this is the last question. Yes. We went up. You talked about Javier Milei, the new president of Argentina.
Yes.
He has reduced the size of government a half.
Yes.
Reduced the ministries, changed the agencies.
Yes.
Sold cars which were previously owned by other government.
Yes. And
we see that he has actually, in 3 months, and surplus budget.
He
found and actually inherited an economy whose inflation was over 200.
Yes.
So, if you are, I don't know if you've been following the Argentina president,
yes,
and what is your take on him?
I think he's...
Why are governments afraid of reducing the size of government and actually giving give breathing space to the economy to grow?
It is because that governments in Africa come to earn. He did come to earn. That's it. And 2 is that economies, the president of Argentina is the 21st generation president. And if we could borrow a leaf from what he's doing, imagine in the space he has been in power for the last 25 years, he's been able to achieve a balanced budget and also a surplus budget. Who wouldn't want to live in a country where you have a surplus budget so that your citizens can easily switch to a welfare principle? Who wouldn't?
Nobody.
But I think that the question is that African presidents came to earn. They're using government as a source of wealth. And that's the problem. That's why they fight so much to keep that. And that's their position.
Why don't politicians believe that it's entrepreneurs, innovators, industrialists, that there are people who create wealth?
I don't know why they don't think so, but every sort of innovation which has changed man from medicine to cars to technology to artificial intelligence now and everything has been on the realm of entrepreneurs. People don't know that entrepreneurs are actually the engine of every society, not the presidents. Politicians, much of the times, have nothing to offer.
Why is politics considered and more discussed more than the economy and any other aspect of social life?
It is so because that the majority of the people haven't reached the 1% of the global economy. We only have 1% of the rich people, and we have the rest of us being the common people entangled with the politicians.
Is that the reason why politics is considered more important?
Yes. Because if
I think they will consider economy.
Because if you look at
entrepreneurs and the industrialists who give jobs, who give
because if you look at the value of what politics and the economy offers, the economy would have been much more discussed. But people have not given a chance to know the value of entrepreneurship. That's what I'm talking of. That's why it will have, because we discuss more politics than business.
So, as we conclude, we went up the program. I want to appreciate to our viewers, listeners. We hope to bring to you more editions of such a program to you. We are libertarian who actually believe in liberal ideas. We believe in freedom as the most important thing, and we believe that the government should be very, very limited and should leave us to live our life the way we want it, provided we are not harmful people, provided we are not terrorists, and provided we want to live our life better. We want to live it the way we want, based on our choices and what we are doing. In 1 minute, give us your cutting short as we went.
Now, I think that every individual should define themselves on the personates of how they see things. Man should know that he has choices which are different from others. But society must understand that its transformation, especially Uganda today, is on the wheels of entrepreneurs. They provide the biggest solutions for today's problems, and they also the engine that transforms a country into an economy, which is outstanding.
Yeah, thank you very much, our viewers. We want to take this opportunity to thank the Eclipse Media for always giving us libertarian platform. Thank you very much. We always be there to support Eclipse Media. For those who have advert, have opportunities that they can give to the community, do it through Eclipse Media. Thank you very much.